lighting people, there's an undeniable connection among construction materials, the environment, and human health. In recent decades, there's been a growing wave of environmentally friendly practices and standards that have caused building designs to be greener and more sustainable. Specifiers often know the content of recycled materials in flooring, ceiling systems, and other architecturally specified products, but what about the light fixtures? How environmentally friendly are they? How healthy are they? To discuss this question and others, we're delighted to catch up with Melissa Mattis of prestigious lighting design firm, Sladen Feinstein. Melissa, hello and thank you for joining us today for 5 Big Questions.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Melissa, both you and your firm have been fairly proactive in talking about material transparency. What is material transparency in a lighting context and why is it important?
So material transparency in general is the initiative of the manufacturer to disclose the material ingredients of their products. And this isn't just for the design team, of course, this is also for the end users that are ending up in their spaces. So one way you can think about material transparency is as a nutrition label for building products. So just the same way that we read food labels to make informed decisions about our bodies, we should also be able to make the same informed decisions about the buildings and the related products since we're occupying the spaces in a similar way. And I would say as far as like specifically for lighting, right now, it really is an important part of the conversation because we've advanced so much as far as operational carbon reductions go. But in order to continue making these movements towards our overall carbon footprint, to like these improvements that we have to make, we really have to start taking a look at what embodied carbon really means. And so for light fixtures, it's actually a surprisingly impactful part of that evaluation. So the first step to really understanding the environmental impact of a product is to first know what it's made of. And that's going to be through material transparency.
Right, you of course get involved in so many different commercial projects and there's different stakeholders in the project. There's the owner, there's the architectural design team and others. When you look at these projects and who's driving the sustainability or the human health conversation, which stakeholders usually have the loudest voice at the table driving those types of measures into various projects?
Yeah, you know, to be fair, we get a lot of leadership from the architectural design community as far as the story that they've already been working on. So they already have a lot more insight into the like the environmental health and social impacts of their designs. So since we're just starting to kind of build our own momentum in the lighting industry, it's been really helpful to have their footprints to follow in. But as far as leading the conversation of the project goes, it's really something that we as the lighting designers are starting to take more ownership of. And even for those of us that are less familiar or don't know as much as we would like to, that doesn't mean that we can't lead the conversations. And we're really finding that it's not as hard of a sell as we thought that it might be, because you have the architect who's already familiar with material transparency. So they're like, oh, you know, of course, like we should be doing this for lighting too. And you get a fair amount of clients that are pretty easy to get on board. Like, for example, like in health sciences or life sciences. And then we already have some clients who are just asking for it, like higher educational institutions and whatnot. So I would say that a lot of the voice is coming from within the lighting industry, helping to spread the word of the larger effort that's already going on around us in order to help kind of build more momentum from within our own industry.
That's good to hear. And you made a great comparison earlier to a nutrition label. This initiative has a label called the Declare label. Could you describe what some of those material transparency aspects are of the Declare label as it relates to lighting products?
Yep. So Declare, it answers 3 simple questions. Where does the product come from? What is it made of? And where does it go at the end of its life? So like I mentioned before, we do expect to see detailed ingredient disclosure for our food. And so the same is true of building materials as far as Declare goes. So the main difference between Declare and HBD, which are very, very similar, they're both revealing the product's ingredients. Declare HBD allows you to pick your level of disclosure, where declare requires the ingredient reporting of at least 99% of all intentionally added ingredients to 100 parts per million. So it's really stepping it up to like a higher level. And the other thing that I really love about the declare label is broken down into 3 very simple digestible sections. So you get the top one, which is the product information, the middle section, which is the ingredient reporting, and then the bottom section, which is the level of declare. So with the ingredient reporting, it's really great because you can quickly just glance at the label and see any red list materials in dark orange. So it gives you like a really quick read to let you know if there's any of the like bioaccumulative toxic materials like in the product itself. And then on the bottom portion, you have like the level of declare that it is. So you get declared, which is simply, revealing all of the ingredients. You get red list approved, which means that they're using an exception. So there is a red list material, but they're using an exception, which there are quite a few of for lighting. And then the highest level is red list free. So that means, there's no toxic materials in the product. So it's a really, really quick glance read of a lot of very, very complex information, which makes it kind of a go-to label, I would say, in the industry. Although there are others, like I mentioned, the HPD.
Yes, certainly there are, but none that take this exact approach and certainly pull in some of those other factors. And when you look at from a manufacturing standpoint, I know you're a specifier on the design side, working on projects, but when you look at what a manufacturer would need to do to get their products listed with this declare label, you might have some small manufacturers saying, we just don't have the manpower to assign someone to dig into the details of every single fixture that we have. And you might have large manufacturers that look at 1 million SKUs and say, this is an insurmountable project. We can't get rolling with a declare label because there's just a ton of work. What would you say to those manufacturers that are faced with those types of challenges?
Yeah, I mean, I think it was a similar kind of conversation that everybody was having with the food label, because it's like, it seems like this crazy thing to do, like to list all of your ingredients. But I think it's really just a matter of like kind of shifting the idea of what the normal is. So, I mean, the easiest thing to do is to start small. Start with your top selling product. Start with like like having your one product is like your big push. Like once you get the first one done, that's the hardest step. It's like that first big push, because then most of your ingredients are the same for, or they're very similar for others. So just acknowledging that really the biggest one. And, like starting with the top product. And then I would also say, if price is really a concern, start with an HBD. Like you don't have to do declare. Like HBD is much more affordable than declare. And let's see. I would also say like starting with a product family, like trying to work through, because those are going to be kind of similar. So kind of like just narrowing in and looking at what's going to get people's attention the most.
Melissa, 15 years ago, there were similar conversations being had about Revit files when the specifiers were demanding Revit files and people had to do that. Manufacturers started adding that to their new product launch list. You have to have IES files, instruction sheets, spec sheets, and add Revit files to that. Now, as new products get rolled out, we'll add the declare labels and go back following some of those good points you just mentioned.
Yeah.
And work in some of those declare labels.
Yeah, exactly. And like, even for the smaller manufacturers, if you don't have a declare label, like you can still like, there's a negotiation, it's like, we want to encourage the manufacturers to take this step, like the same way. So we can work together and say, hey, look, if we get you this job, like, can you make this product declare? Like, can you get the, disclosure that we need for it? So we can kind of, scratch each other's backs.
Well, that's good. So so they do a one-off on that, or maybe 5 or 6 different labels for that one project, and then that helps burn that as well. So that's a good take as well. And I trust that most specifiers like you would be reasonable in making those things happen across the board, especially as adoption of this is smaller right now, and as it continues to grow. That'll certainly be an example of some conversations that'll be had. In the report that you folks published recently, it was a survey that expects 40% of manufacturers to be compliant with declare labels over the next 3 years, which is frankly higher than I would have predicted. And that's great news for this initiative. So what are some of the more supportive manufacturers stating as their reasons for going in on this declare label and this material transparency initiative?
Yeah, I mean, I think the ones who are really getting on board are really forward. They're really forward looking. They realize that this is where the industry is going. They want to like get, stay ahead of the game, stay on top of things. And then also, manufacturers, like they want to do the right thing. Like they don't want to be producing toxic products that are going to hurt like their occupants or the clients, so it's like, once they start realizing the importance of the work, they want to be a part of the movement. So, and there is like the financial like pitch of it too. I mean, it just kind of staying with the game. Like there's a big financial pitch for the sustainable products. So, and there's a lot of manufacturers that are taking a lot of different approaches too. It doesn't mean like you have to get a declare label, you have to get an HBD. Like we're seeing people celebrate the stories that they're already on, whether they're working towards like like solar power or whatever it is that there's a part of their story. Just the fact that they're sharing that with people and saying, hey, we're a part of this conversation too, and like we're happy to be here.
Yeah, no, there's many good reasons all around to do it. And as more and more architects and lighting design specifiers start to request and then eventually possibly demand this to be part of future projects, it'll of course grab more and more adoption industry wide. So it's an exciting topic, one that I think our audience is excited to learn more about. So Melissa, thank you for joining us today for 5 Big Questions.
Thank you.
Hey there, we really enjoyed that discussion. We hope that you did as well. Be sure to click that big LED logo next to me. And what that'll do is subscribe you to our YouTube channel so you don't miss the next 5 Big Questions interview. And YouTube subscribers always receive an early preview to the next interview before we even post it on the Inside Lighting website. Thanks, and we'll see you next time.